Good evening, everyone. Welcome to NTD Tonight. I'm David Zhang. Here are some of today's top stories. 3 members of the European Union say they will recognize a Palestinian state. How are other nations reacting? A group of House Democrats wants Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito to recuse himself from cases related to former President Trump. A city in California adopts a neutral flag policy. Only certain flags can fly on city grounds. First up, nations are reacting after several members of the European Union said they would recognize a Palestinian state effective May 28th. Ireland, Spain, and Norway announced the decision earlier today and urged other Western countries to follow suit. They say the recognition aims to accelerate efforts to secure a ceasefire in Gaza. The Palestinian Authority, which self-governs the West Bank, welcomed the announcement. Israel immediately recalled its ambassadors from the 3 European countries and summoned the European envoys. The Israeli foreign minister also warned of further severe consequences. Not all EU members agreed on recognizing Palestine. Hungary and France both said they would not follow suit. A White House spokesperson said President Biden believes a Palestinian state should be recognized through negotiations, not through unilateral recognition. Democratic U.S. Senator Chris Coons agrees.
Hamas is a hateful terrorist organization dedicated to killing Jews and destroying Israel. So that they put out a statement today cheering on these announcements by Spain and Norway and Ireland should suggest that this is not a constructive step at this time, and we should continue pressing for a 2-state solution through negotiations.
Ireland, Norway, and Spain have decided to reward the terrorists of Hamas with the prize of recognizing a Palestinian state. It is certainly not lost on Israelis and Jews the world over that these same 3 countries also chose to remain neutral in World War II.
Meanwhile, House Speaker Mike Johnson criticized the ICC for putting out a request for arrest warrants for Israel's leaders over the way its army has conducted its war in Gaza.
On that, I think we need to send a strong message to the world that this is completely, wildly inappropriate, and we're not going to stand for it.
Johnson also says he is planning to invite Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to speak before a joint meeting of Congress.
We'll be issuing the letter as quickly as possible, and we look forward to him coming. It's a lot of important information for him to share, and I think he's anxious to be here. I've spoken with him about it personally, so we look forward to getting that scheduled as soon as possible.
A group of 45 House Democrats want Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito to recuse himself from high-profile January 6 cases. Congressman Hank Johnson spearheaded the letter sent to Alito. This follows news of an upside-down American flag flown outside Justice Alito's home on January 17th. It's a symbol the New York Times reported as being used by Trump supporters contesting the 2020 election. House Democrats' Court Reform Now task force requests Alito recuse himself from the 2 January 6 cases, including Trump's immunity appeal. Alito told the New York Times he had no involvement with the flag at all, explaining his wife displayed it in reaction to vulgar and offensive yard signs posted by a neighbor attacking his wife. GOP Senate leaders also commented about the incident.
I don't know what happened in the neighborhood. I don't think he should be recused.
It seems to me there are just nonstop attacks on the Supreme Court, week after week after week. And so I'm not going to dignify that with a response. We need to leave the Supreme Court alone, protect them from people who went into their neighborhoods and tried to do them harm.
Secretary of State Anthony Blinken was testifying in Congress about the budget request for the State Department. He tells members of the House Appropriations Committee why his department needs more funding for fiscal year 2025.
I think the need for U.S. global leadership and cooperation with allies and partners has never been greater. If we're not engaged, if we're not leading, then we know someone else will, and likely not in a way that advances our interests and values. Or maybe even worse, no one does, and then you're going to have a vacuum that's filled by bad things.
Blinken highlighted threats from China and Russia.
People's Republic of China is pursuing military, economic, geopolitical preeminence, challenging our vision for a free, open, secure, and prosperous international order. Russia's committing aggression not only against Ukraine, but against the principles at the heart of the United Nations Charter.
The Secretary of State also said the U.S. stands by Israel and works to prevent the conflict in Gaza from spreading. He requested over $58 billion for the State Department in the U.S. aid for fiscal year 2025. $2 billion is to fund infrastructure around the world. $1 billion would go to the World Bank, and $1.7 billion is for international organizations, including the UN. Blinken says the $1 billion in U.S. funding for the World Bank can help unlock another $36 billion in development funds for emerging economies, an enormous return on investment and essential for competing with China around the world. Britain's defense minister accuses China of preparing to provide Russia with lethal aid for use in its war against Ukraine. Grant Shapps spoke to a conference in London. He said U.S. and Britain intelligence had evidence that lethal aid is now or will be flowing from China to Russia and into Ukraine. Shapps said there was a 64% increase in trade between Russia and China since the start of the Ukraine war. He said the two countries are covering each other's back. Earlier this month, the Russian President Vladimir Putin visited China. He and Chinese leader Xi Jinping pledged a new era of partnership. They proclaimed opposition to the U.S. on various security issues and shared views on Taiwan and Ukraine. Shapps said Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea had been emboldened by what he called a quarter century of Western timidity. A bill that would mandate cars to warn drivers if they speed advances in the California legislature. NTD's Jason Blair has more.
The bill's author, Senator Scott Wiener, said in a press release that the bill is the first of its kind in the U.S. and is intended to help reduce traffic deaths.
SB 961 will require new cars manufactured or sold in California to employ an existing technology, it already exists, to notify drivers if they go more than 10 miles an hour over the speed limit.
Wiener said the original version of the bill would have physically prevented cars from going 10 miles an hour faster than the speed limit. Some opponents have argued that they don't think it will be too effective. During an April Committee on Transportation meeting discussing the bill, Senator Roger Nilo said that many cars already have similar features.
I'm waiting for somebody to come say we need more cops on the road. We need to stop people more for this driving behavior. And I think eventually, I realize that's costly. We have a budget problem, but I'm convinced that eventually that's the only solution that's going to work.
Wiener said in a press release that the bill is supported by the National Transportation Safety Board, American Academy of Pediatrics, and the American Automobile Association. It's similar to a requirement in the European Union that goes into effect in July.
Research has shown that this does have an impact in getting people to slow down.
The bill passed the state Senate on Tuesday, 22-13. It will next be heard by the state assembly. Jason Blair, NTD News.
A Southern California city adopts a neutral flag policy that limits what flags can be flown on city property. NTD's BJ King has the story.
Earlier this week in Los Angeles County, the Downey City Council voted to adopt a neutral flag policy, which allows only federal, state, and local flags to be raised, with an exception to the prisoners of war and missing in action flag. During the council meeting, residents and elected officials expressed their opinions on the motion.
I do think that it is important that our city represents equally all factions of our community, not just one specifically. I understand the desire for that, but I think it's confusing, and I think it's just much more simple and logical to have us honor our country's flag, our state flag, and our city flag.
When you consider the many efforts across this nation to defame and vilify the LGBTQ community, it becomes painfully clear that it is essential that we actively support this community, because those are Downey's values and those are the values of LA County.
Mayor Pro Tem Hector Sosa, an assenting council member, spoke up and shared his opinion, resonating with other assenting council members' views.
I do have, within my circle of family and friends, I do have LGBTQ that I care deeply for. But again, this isn't our role as elected officials to pick and choose which groups get to be represented by flying their flags.
However, Downey Mayor Mario Trujillo, one of the dissenting voters, shared a similar sentiment to the county supervisor, opposing the motion and claiming it was the result of the ongoing efforts of Mass Resistance, a group that calls itself a pro-family activist organization. Mayor Trujillo also directly expressed his disapproval of the majority vote towards other council members.
Mass Resistance has been deemed as a hate group by the Southern California Poverty Law Center. Their two goals are basically anti-immigration and anti-pride flag. Let's just be clear.
The vote passed 3-2 in favor of the ayes, with Mayor Trujillo and Councilmember Horacio Ortiz as the dissenting vote. BJ Kang, NTD News, Downey, California.
We'll take a short break now, everybody, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come back. Plants enthusiasts help study the wildlife at the U.S.-Mexico border. Find out how they identify and track what they find. This year's NBA Finals feature 4 young stars and not a single former MVP in sight. Those stories and more coming up on NTD Tonight. Welcome back to NTD Tonight. I'm your host, David Zhang. Plants enthusiasts are hovering over the U.S.-Mexico border to record as many species as possible. They're using an app to help identify the wildlife.
Botanists and plant enthusiasts armed with the iNaturalist app on their smartphones are recording the biodiversity along the U.S.-Mexico border. Called the Border BioBlitz, more than 1,000 volunteers are recording as many species as possible.
We found a new observation, maybe a new population of Latidus splendens. This is a plant that is we are looking at for the Baja Verde project.
This peninsula's ecosystem, its flora is so beautiful, and I've seen how its diversity is so important and precious.
The iNaturalist app on their smartphones identifies plants and animals. Their goal during May is to fill a data gap that would lead to more protections for the region's natural richness, which has been overshadowed by news of drug trafficking and migrant smuggling.
So that's why we stopped, because we saw the beautiful flowers, really big flowers, and we also have fruits that look like pea, like the regular peas. And yeah, this is a really cool plant. I'm really happy for today, definitely.
The United Nations will hold a high-level meeting of signatories to the Convention on Biological Diversity that aims to protect 30% of land, freshwater, and oceans considered important for biodiversity by 2030, also known as 30 by 30.
A former Oakland police chief has announced he's running for city council. The mayor fired him last year, claiming she lost confidence in him.
LaRon Armstrong, a former Oakland police chief, announced Wednesday that he is running for Oakland City Council at large. On his campaign website, Armstrong said, "The Oakland that raised me is spiraling downward," and repeated calls from residents expressing their frustration with status quo politicians motivated me to continue to serve the city I know and love. A spokesperson said he is running to replace Vice Mayor Rebecca Kaplan. Armstrong is an Oakland native and was sworn in as Oakland's chief of police in February 2021. Last February, Oakland's new mayor, Sheng Tao, fired Armstrong after he allegedly failed to discipline a sergeant following an internal investigation. She said she had lost confidence in the police chief. In response, this February, Armstrong sued the city and mayor for being unlawfully terminated in retaliation. Earlier this month, the mayor appointed Floyd Mitchell, a former Texas police chief, to fill Armstrong's role after the position was left vacant for over a year.
In Southern California, authorities arrested over 50 felons and seized nearly 30 firearms. The week-long operation is part of an ongoing crackdown on gangs possessing illegal drugs and firearms.
The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department announced authorities have arrested 51 people and seized 29 firearms as part of a week-long operation from May 11th to May 17th. In a statement, the department said they have also seized 6 ghost guns. 20 search warrants were served targeting gang members and other individuals not allowed to own guns. The warrants were served in San Bernardino, Adelanto, Victorville, and Apple Valley as part of Operation Consequences, an ongoing crime suppression effort by the Sheriff's Department. According to the statement, the operation targets gangs and aims to arrest criminals who are illegally possessing, manufacturing, and trafficking firearms. The previous intervention by Operation Consequences from May 4th to May 10th resulted in 8 arrests and the seizure of 22 firearms, with 14 being ghost guns. They also recovered over 3.5 pounds of illegal narcotics.
An attorney for a Las Vegas casino and hotel says they suffered millions in damages after the Las Vegas Grand Prix turned the Strip into a racetrack. They claim the race's construction hindered their customers and employees from accessing the property.
The owners of Ellis Island Casino are suing the Las Vegas Grand Prix for monetary damages. The family-run casino and hotel claims their business was interfered with after the Strip was transformed into a 3.8-mile racetrack. They are located 1 block from the Las Vegas Strip in the resort corridor. In a statement to NTD, Ellis Island's attorney said Ellis Island's damages to date are already in the millions of dollars. And as you know, F1 is planning on holding its race every year for the next 9 years, which will continue to cause Ellis Island significant economic losses in the future. Last year, Clark County granted the race's organizers a 10-year permit for the race. It cost about $80 million to repave the street. Construction blocked much of the touristy views, and parking was scarce. The lawsuit claims the construction impeded Ellis Island's customers and employees from accessing the property.
Shifting over to sports, we have a historic moment unfolding in the NBA playoffs. The conference finals feature 4 young stars and not a single former MVP in sight. NTD's Carlos Reyes is here to break it down for us. Carlos, what makes this year's conference final so special?
Well, thanks for having me, David. This year's NBA Conference Finals are a glimpse into the future of the league. For the first time ever, none of the Final 4 teams feature a current or former MVP. It's a testament to the rise of the next generation of stars, each eager to leave their mark and potentially secure their first championship.
Let's talk about the Celtics' Jason Tatum. At just age 26, he's already a playoff veteran. How crucial is this moment for him?
It's a huge moment for Tatum, David. He's been a consistent force for the Celtics, reaching 5 conference finals in his 7-year career. Despite his youth, he's already considered a leader and a key player for Boston. This season, he led the Celtics to the league's best regular season record with an impressive net rating. Winning a title would not only elevate his status, but also solidify his legacy alongside Celtics legends. It's a prime opportunity for Tatum to silence any doubts about his ability to lead a team to a championship.
How about Tyrese Halliburton of the Indiana Pacers? He's made quite an impression this season.
Absolutely, David. Halliburton has been nothing short of spectacular. He averaged 20.1 points and led the NBA with 10.9 assists per game this season. His combination of skill, confidence, and humility has endeared fans and teammates alike. If he can carry Indiana to the finals, he'll be compared to Pacers greats like Reggie Miller, potentially surpassing their achievements.
Now, Anthony Edwards from the Minnesota Timberwolves, some are already comparing him to Michael Jordan. What do you think?
Well, Edwards has certainly shown flashes of brilliance. At just 22, his explosive style and relentless drive have drawn comparisons to Jordan, which is crazy to imagine. This season, he has improved his scoring, shooting, and playmaking abilities significantly. He's led the Timberwolves to the Western Conference Finals, which is remarkable for someone so young. If he continues this trajectory and secures a championship, he could very well become the new face of the NBA.
Yep. Lastly, Luka Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks, Coach Jason Kidd has called him the best player in franchise history. Now, how realistic is it for him to lead the Mavericks to a title?
Well, David, Kidd's praise is high but not unfounded. Doncic is a phenomenal talent, often drawing comparisons to all-time greats like MJ and LeBron. This season, he posted a historically unprecedented stat line, leading the league with 33.9 points, along with 9.2 rebounds and 9.8 assists per game, which is insane. Winning a title would cement his status as one of the game's best, potentially surpassing Dirk Nowitzki's legendary impact on the franchise. The Mavs defense has stepped up, and with Doncic at the helm, they're a formidable contender.
Well, can't wait to see how it all unfolds. Thanks, Carlos, for your insights.
No problem, David. It's shaping up to be a great final series.
All right, coming up next, stay tuned for China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer. The new tariffs on Chinese imports taking effect on August 1st. U.S. officials say the tariffs address China's unfair trade practices and protect the U.S. economy. More on China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And that's all we've got for you tonight. We'd like you to join us again on NTD Tonight every weekday at 9 p.m. I'm David Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.